This is not a religious channel, but it's not a religious channel. Religion is all around us, but it can be surprisingly challenging to study. Going to church every week is not really the best way to learn about a religion. Much of the time spent in religious services is primarily dedicated to other things, like ritual, music, prayer, or sermonizing. Even time set aside for designated classes is often more focused on indoctrination or forms of pastoral counseling. Usually it amounts to a sort of lifestyle coaching, but there's very little actual educational content. You're probably going to learn less about the religion's history or theology than you should, and generally, a church isn't going to volunteer information about itself that could be damaging. With that said, and this may seem strange, I don't totally discourage attending houses of worship as a learning exercise, even if you're not a believer. Outsiders like me can be good at acquiring academic knowledge, but it's hard to get the holistic picture of its traditions, ritual, and experience without observing it in the wild. So what makes religious studies so difficult? On the academic side, a lot of study has been kept behind a paywall. Most of us know what these are. Religious expertise has historically required specialized education, and that can be an expensive deterrent if it's not a field you want to work in professionally. Even if you do get a theology degree, continuing education, like just trying to keep up with the latest scholarship or journals, can still be cost prohibitive. In the last 25 years or so, it has become increasingly easier to bypass the paywall and study on your own. Literally, thousands of years of material are now available at your fingertips online. I can't emphasize enough how much of a game changer this has been. Before the invention of the printing press, it was unthinkable for lay people to have their own personal copies of a single religious text. But after that, it still required a personal library full of books for serious scholarly study. Now everybody has instant access to those materials in formats that don't take up shelf space, raising the bar of what believers and unbelievers alike are able to learn. While it's not possible to learn about religions with little to no financial investment, you should be aware of the limitations. There is no substitute for language study. Eventually, every serious student has to engage the religion in its original language. Even with all the translation tools available today, if you don't actually understand the language, then please don't pretend that you do. And don't fool yourself into thinking you do. When you don't know a language, you don't even know the linguistic fallacies you can make by thinking you do. Public domain may not be quality or current. If you're relying on materials available in the public domain, be aware that just because it's free doesn't mean it's good. Also, keep in mind that this means you're working with materials that are a century old or more. So you may not have the best translation of something available, or there may have been better and more recent scholarship on a subject. Artificial intelligence is not your friend. Experts on a subject can detect when AI is wrong, but you won't know that if you're letting AI be your instructor. Also, AI can manipulate people's confidence and make them think they're more proficient than they really are. AI excels at making people feel smarter when it's really making them more stupid. Study is not scholarship. You're not doing your own research. I like to say that studying is the basic work everybody has to do, while scholarship is the process of doing the work once, so eventually nobody has to do it again. It's work. You don't do it by watching influencer content. First, the study of any religion takes a lot of reading. A summary of a text is not the same as reading the whole text. When I discuss religions with people, I expect them to have done the basic homework, like reading their entire holy book. But if you want to take it to the next level, you should also read supplemental and source materials. In Christianity, for instance, this would include the early church fathers, apocryphal writings, contemporary historians like Josephus, and some Greek mythology. Learning takes exercise. For Christians, I highly recommend something like trying to harmonize the Gospels. Get a wide-margin Bible and go through it verse by verse, noting the cross-references. I know they already make gospel harmonies, but don't just go out and buy a finished product or you'll miss out on learning from this exercise. When you do it yourself, you'll see how the writers use the same material for different rhetorical goals, how their styles differ, and the parts that are unique to each gospel will stand out. You'll find new areas of focus you didn't even know were there. Find ways to check your work. Self-study doesn't have a professor to grade you or blind peer review. Acknowledge when you could be wrong. Though navigating the academic side may be getting easier, you may find that other information is kept behind what I call a Praywall. A Praywall is an artificial barrier to learning that requires you to be a believer or member in good standing. In Christianity, a Praywall is often constructed around the Bible in different ways. On one side, The Catholic Church historically discouraged independent lay study under the pretense that only the Church could properly interpret it. While on the other side, reformers initially freed the text from this dogmatic approach, yet many still tell you that you can't really understand the Bible without guidance from the Holy Spirit. Let's be clear. The Bible is a book, and any literate person has the ability to read and understand it without the need for any magical powers. Saying otherwise is making the Bible more like a Gnostic or mystery religion. And if you find yourself hitting a wall at which point you can't learn any further without being a member, then that probably means it's a cult. Both paywalls and praywalls are ways that religions maintain monopolies. For example, a religious university may require you to accept a statement of faith and abide by its religious legalism or face expulsion. In the same way that increased literacy and the Reformation concept of the priesthood of the believer expanded and democratized the possibilities of learning beyond the professional clergy, we're now at another crossroads. People are deconstructing their faith with unmoderated access to the same information that used to be confined to seminary students. Now that the genie is out of the bottle, I'm going to call on religious institutions to do better at education. Today's megachurches seem to be able to staff professional camera crews and build scale replicas of Noah's Ark. Churches used to have positions for witch-finders and executioners. So perhaps today's churches could invest some more in scholarly resources. I don't mean investing more in apologetics. I mean providing real service and tools in the same way that the church helped pioneer universal literacy and trusted the public to read, even if it could lead to questioning their faith. Religions could be at the forefront of teaching Greek, Hebrew, Arabic, etc. There's been a recent push for the traditional Latin Mass in the Catholic Church, but not so much push to actually teach Latin. Religions could also do better by making scholarly resources like theological journals more readily available and accessible to the public, the way that libraries or learning institutions do. I'm sure there are a lot more things you could suggest, but these are the things that would help more people get around the paywall. And lifting the Praywall by offering it to anyone regardless of their religious affiliation or standing would help even more. There's a lot more I could say about this, and I will, so keep following.